I've been playing her since the first release back in early 2021 and wrote a full guide that can be found in the description, but let's start. As you know, you want to be below 50% HP on Hu Tao to activate her Ascension for passive and maybe a Homa. The first skill cast will bring you to 70% HP, while the second one will bring you around 49%. You can keep in mind the number of your half HP mark, but what we can also do is use the slash in the middle of the HP bar as a visual indication. Especially if you take damage, is use the slash. Skill cast will bring you to 70% HP, while the second one will bring you around 49%. You can keep in mind the number of your half HP mark, but what we can also do is use the slash in the middle of the HP bar as a visual indication, especially if you take damage or get random heals. It doesn't always predict a perfect half, but it gives you a general idea. A bit below and you're safe. Checking her body buffs is not very reliable in combat because it overlaps with other buffs and it can be very confusing during movement. Next trick is called PP Slide. I know it's a weird name, but it makes sense. Hear this, Hu Tao's elemental skill does not expire for as long as you are in a charged attack. This means that it's possible to Q a burst during your last charged, and it will take full advantage of your skill buff even if it was supposed to end during said charge attack. In practice, you check your timing on your skill, on your last charge attack, you do not cancel it, but just hit the burst. She will perform it at the end and snapshot your skill buff. A super handy trick to squeeze out extra damage. As you can see in the clip, my skill is supposed to be already ended, but we still get the damage of a non-vaped burst in that condition. Getting this late into the skill cooldown is also thanks to the next tip, which is hit lag. Hu Tao's skill does not actually have the duration that is stated on the skill in practical uses. Because of an in-game mechanic called hit lag, she can actually gain extra time depending on how fast and often you're attacking. Hit lag occurs when melee attacks hit a target, slowing down the attacker, and various in-game counters for a short amount of time. It's used to give the impression of weight and impact to attacks. For Tao, this translates to long skill durations. It's important to know about this to better decide when to prepare rotating or when to use your burst. Let's talk about combos a bit. There can be a lot to talk about, but I want to give you a too long didn't read. The two main ones are N1C, one normal plus a charged, and N2C, two normals plus a charged, both getting cancelled by a jump or a dash or not cancelled at all. N1C applies less pyro and can be easier to cancel, while N2C avoids dash cooldown and can lead to higher damage but also result in more pyro being applied. The general recommendation is to honestly perform either depending on personal preference or the amount of pyro applied by other units, such as Toma or Shanling. The way you will want to cancel either combo is generally by jumping at C0 and dashing at C1. With that said, you can absolutely mix and match the combo, but remember that without C1, cancelling your charge attack with a dash will be very expensive and it should be done only for short damage windows. Not cancelling your combos at all is totally fine, and contrary to popular belief, it's not a big deal unless you lose control over and totally miss your attacks. Cancelling is great for extra frames, but even better for repositioning and not missing your target. And while we're at it, what's the dash cooldown? Well, if you sprint twice within 0.8 seconds, you will not be able to sprint again right away and will have to wait a bit. For Hu Tao, this is actually important, as if doing your combo too fast, you will encounter this dash cooldown and it will make you waste time repositioning. Cancelling at 0.8 seconds intervals will make sure that it doesn't happen, but it requires some practice. And now a quick one, but not that useful, Hu Tao's dash can pass through enemies, and it can even escape something like Mirror Maiden's Prison. A fun tip for C1 owners is that if you find yourself exploring without stamina in the overworld, you can just go skill plus charge attack spam, you will move forward, be pretty fast actually, and all of this while getting your stamina back. I wanted this video to be more about a few gameplay tips that I know than building tips, but I have to talk at least briefly about the new weapon and the new artifact set. The new Battle Pass weapon, Ballad of the Fjords, is incredibly good on Hu Tao, but also likes refinements. At R1, you wouldn't consider this much stronger than an R5 Dragonsbane, but already very similar. Sometimes better, sometimes worse. Even though that match gives you more crit rate, I wouldn't pick it anymore for Hu Tao. Refining the new weapon will make it the best non-5-star option for Hu Tao without a doubt. Only restriction you really have is that you cannot play double pyro and double hydro, as it would not activate the elemental mastery. Regarding Mara HC, a lot of people ask about it, but to be fair, it's definitely not a Hu Tao set. You can try to lose HP via ginger reactions or small healing, but it's not reliable and makes your teams very awkward. You also don't want to scale plus burst for 2 stacks right away, because they only last 5 seconds and you would never be below 50% HP. Honestly, until we have a reliable way to shift their HP constantly, Mara HC is totally a no-go. Thank you so much for watching this far. If you like my content, make sure to sub or visit over twitch.tv/7even please. We're live every day doing account reviews, Abyss, and you would never be below 50% HP. Honestly, until we have a reliable way to shift their HP constantly, Mara HC is totally a no-go. Way to shift their HP constantly, Mara HC is totally a no-go. Thank you so much for watching this far. If you like my content, make sure to sub. Ready to learn a few hidden Ayaka mechanics? Wondering about pairing her with Furina? Or how to squeeze out some extra damage? Let's answer this and more with 7 advanced tips for every Ayaka main. As always, these videos avoid covering the basics and go straight into less known facts and ways to enjoy and maximize our mains. For the first tips, we look at her charge attack. The way it works is actually way more intricate than it looks. You would imagine that it just does damage in front of her, but actually, and to put it simply, the way it works is that in the first frames, the attack checks for enemies in front and locks onto them. Then, even if the target moves or teleports, damage will be done at their location in AoE. See how the enemy in front of me is just about to move, but I'm still able to get the damage in. Knowing this will let you avoid cancelling a charge attack that would otherwise land, and it works even if it's See how the enemy in front of me is just about to move, but I'm still able to get the damage in. Knowing this will let you avoid cancelling a charge attack that would otherwise land, and it works even if it's Ayaka herself getting moved, pushed without interruption, or lifted by an albedo skill, for example. Not much is going on for her skill, except the fact that he has some verticality to it, being able to hit a ring guard's weak point when he lowers down, for example. The same applies to her burst, which can hit a multitude of flying enemies. This burst is the most important part of her kit and represents most of her damage. It consists of 19 hits plus one final explosion. It is absolutely vital that it hits for as much as possible. That's why Ayaka's teams and rotations focus on it. One of her best teammates and one of the most popular pools in Genshin is Kazuha. He's incredibly strong with Ayaka, and I want to use him to show you two techs that can elevate your Ayaka gameplay. The first would be how Kazuha's skill can potentially ruin Ayaka's setup by shattering enemies and freeing them from freeze, which could result in them escaping the burst or at least part of it. One small trick that you can use here to still get the benefits of a Kazuha skill, like refreshing the very decent Veneer debuff, is to press it without actually plunging down. And to push this a little further, you can double press your jump key to open and close the glider to descend faster. I often use this when I don't have much Hydra application going or I know the enemy could easily escape. For example, when you freeze one of those samurai guys right as they are about to dash away and you know they're gone once the freeze is interrupted, even if briefly. Another thing you can do, and this is especially strong when considering Furina and your team, is to double swirl to buff both Furina's summons and Ayaka. This is usually done by making sure there is a cryo aura on the enemy, but also an underlying Hydra aura. Kazuha's hold and burst at a point will give you the double buff, and you will see two sources of swirl damage when done right. This tip doesn't matter much when playing Kokomi or Bona, but with Furina it is vital. Now, something less about damage and more about practicality. A more newbie-friendly tip.